Culture is not a bar on upstairs and downstairs. Culture is not the Xbox in the corner. Now, we had all that for a while, but we got rid of all of it, literally, because nobody was using it. So it was kind of funny. So I think for our company and what we're doing, culture is definitely a moat. People want to work here, and that keeps smart people. And the people that enjoy what they're doing and enjoy who they're working with.
Welcome to SaaS That App, Building B2B Web Applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I'm your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in.
Hello and welcome back to SaaS That App. I am again without my co-pilot, who is again traveling the world. He and his amazing adventures, which he's going to have to catch us up on when he gets back in. But today, I get to welcome to the show Steve Powell. Steve is the co-owner of Delta Systems, full-service software engineering consulting company known for building and maintaining critical applications, e-commerce systems that process hundreds of millions in online sales each year. Steve describes himself as an entrepreneur, raconteur, and provocateur, which will definitely need some teasing out.
Hello. Thank you. Hi. Where's Justin? I don't get the donut shirt.
You do not get the statement shirt this week. He is in somewhere in Southeast Asia at the moment.
Oh, maybe he's buying a fifth shirt. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
we'll have to see it on the show and get the story all about it.
Excellent. Very good.
Well, history lesson time. So you've obviously done a lot of stuff in your career. You've been an engineer for email monitoring systems. You've been an angel investor. You've been a mentor to startups. You have owned and operated a software consultancy and spun off some SaaSes along the way. So back to the beginning, what got you started in software technology and kind of kicked off this journey?
Yeah, if we go all the way back, I went to college. And so I know that's rare. I was electrical engineering and computer engineering. If you stay an extra 2 years, you get an extra degree. So that works pretty well.
Is that automatic?
That's automatic, I think. Then at some point, what is it from Tommy Boy? A lot of people go to school for 9 years. So they're called doctors. All right. Anyway. But yeah, I did that. But the funny part was I was dating this girl and went to a birthday party over at Harpo's here in Columbia. And my girlfriend's boyfriend said, just come find me when you graduate. And I walked in there and had about a half-hour interview and got my first job and worked for that guy. Didn't know much programming at all, electrical engineering. I just kind of picked up programming from there. And I walked in the door over at Delta Systems, and a woman named Devin Binish had started this company in 1986, and she got people off of typewriters. Look that up on Wikipedia. And she got converted to computers and word processing over at Shelter Insurance, which is a regional, I don't know, maybe they're nationwide now, I don't know, insurance carrier that has been a customer, still is a customer today. And so we started doing network support for them as well. They didn't have anybody in-house in the beginning, so that was kind of funny. And so she went out and hired some people to help with network support. And then I came along in the early 2000s, and I said, hey, you want me to work on your software development team? And she says, I don't have a software development. I said, oh, would you just want me to make one? And so kind of what she said, we started finding niches, finding our way, and started making some key hires, and we're able to expand from there, and we just kind of felt our way along. But, I think you had TK Herman on, and he was talking about culture as a moat. And when I listened to that, I was like, this guy gets it. That's exactly what we are. We have this culture is not a pool table. Culture is not a bar on upstairs and downstairs. Culture is not the Xbox in the corner. Now, we had all that for a while, but we got rid of all of it, literally, because nobody was using it. So it was kind of funny. So I think for our company and what we're doing, culture is definitely a moat. People want to work here, and that keeps smart people. And the people that enjoy what they're doing and enjoy who they're working with. So you got to be mentally challenged, but emotionally helpful to other people. Then it's not just, life is too short to tolerate people that you just can't get along with, right? They may be smart, amazing coder, and boy, they can really design the heck out of an app or a system, but I just don't even want to look at this person. That would be not something I want to do. So,
all right. And that's a wrap. So
that was right. How we do.
That's excellent. Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, and I want to get into some of it. So
All right.
let's jump back to soft sell and ABS, automated business solutions, for those of you that don't know. I want to talk about SaaS basically before it was a coined term or a phrase. It's what you guys wanted to do. And, always one of the first questions I like to ask folks that come on that have been successful at it, what was the problem? What was the thing you were seeking to solve? What was the issue that needed what it was that you were doing?
Yeah, I think in this situation, it was the gentleman that I worked for at first. They had the problem that email was being run by a system called CC Mail. And it was extremely popular. Like most of the mailboxes in the world were running on CC Mail at the time. That's a CC:mail, right? And that product was an independent little product that just exploded. And everybody was using it. And the gentleman I worked for had the foresight. They had they called them routers, mail routers, that basically it was just used a modem to call other phones, right? And they would check for mail. And so if you think of a hub and spoke configuration, it was an email server in New York would call another modem in Bangkok and say, "Hi, do you have any mail for me?" "Nope." "Do you have any mail for me?" "Nope." And it would hang up. Back in the day, that was $3 for one phone call that lasted 15 seconds and you did nothing. And just imagine doing that if you're a Citibank globally and domestically across the United States, right? Just all these servers calling each other for no reason. But that they recorded that into a log, and then they were like, nobody ever did anything with it. And they would just pay these astronomical phone bills. And somebody said, "Hey, this is silly." And so he hired a guy and they coded this thing in DOS that actually was parsing that router log and then saying, "Oh, well, if we reconfigure this to, how about everybody, it's not hub and spoke, it's all point to point, and you just call back home when you have mail." And so now every time they made a phone call, an actual email was sent. And then you had the problem of somebody sending a 1 meg email. Oh my gosh. 1 meg back then, forget it. That was days, right? And it was all sequential. It's one at a time. So if that sucker was stuck, there's no way to send a pool ball down to unstick it. You literally had to alert somebody. And so we had pagers. The system would actually page you when it detected that some giant email was trying to be sent from Bangkok to New York. And instead of you paying for having a phone call last for multiple days for one single giant email, you would get a page about it, and then they would go fix that problem. And then when I came along, they moved that into Windows, and that was a SaaS in the late 90s. It was, this software application as a service inside a browser. Can you do that? Yeah, actually you can. And so we got very creative very early. And so we did very basic things. We literally had the system take a screenshot. And how do you update somebody? Well, it took a screenshot, it saved it to a server, and then your browser would just be open in the data room. And it had literally that refresh tag on it, the very basic meta tag. It said, "Oh, every 5 seconds, just refresh yourself." And so we just had the screen. That was a web-enabled app. That easy, that early. And so it got very fancy very early on. And then when we got into Microsoft Exchange, we started changing the rules. We were competing against a company called NetIQ, which was a billion-dollar company. And we're just 3 guys in literally the back bedroom of my apartment at the time. And we were competing against them and their systems, and was it HP OpenView, I think it was called. And I mean, we were just crushing them because it was stupid simple. But we solved the problem, and we solved the problem easily. We gave you visual data. We gave you refreshing data. I didn't know anything about how the infrastructure worked, but we had to become an expert in their systems and an expert in electronic mail to solve the problem. And so, it's kind of one of the toughest jobs to do, right? You're trying to solve a problem, but then you have to become an expert at it and then fix that problem when a customer comes to you. It's not the easiest job in the world.
Yeah. Well, you obviously were successful at that. There was an exit. You made this opportunity for yourself at Delta when you came to talk to Devin. And I always love that story. Hey, you want a software division? I can create one for you.
You want one? Because I'll make one for you. So she did say she had one job for me to do. And after that, she was going to have to let me go. And I said, "Don't worry, I'll make my own rain." Yeah, I had no idea what I was talking about. Competence got me that job.
There you go. Well, and here you still are. Well, I know that at a certain point, obviously, you took full ownership of the organization And I think it was even at that point that you had begun a little bit of a pivot. Like you mentioned, and obviously to add a little more context to that, Delta was training. I mean, it was a training company. That's kind of how it started, its founding. And by the time that you had come along, PC and network support for local companies was already a thing. Websites were kind of becoming a deal. Software was in place, but it was almost always something that you purchased and installed and you ran it, or, that sort of a thing. There wasn't this big web database of utilities that people could just download and install.
We built NPM before NPM was a thing.
Right, exactly.
That's right. How do we round the corner? Yeah. So training, it was, let's train you to get from typewriters to computers. So we did that. So she had training classes for thousands of people in this town. She was balling. She had 5, 6, 7, 8 trainers going and a full schedule of training throughout the day. And then they're like, oh, hey, this computer's busted that you trained us on. Can you fix it? And she said, I don't have anybody for that. And they said, well, go find somebody for that. And so again, like I said, she hired a network support person who, is still working for us today. And that grew for a while, and we had 3 or 4 or 5 people working there. And then it became, the computer's working. That's great. Oh, hey, this Excel that you taught us, this thing's getting too big and it's out of control. We need something better. And then she would train them on Microsoft Access. And then they're like, whoa, that's too complicated. Can you guys just run it for us and build it for us? So we started doing that. And that's when I came into the picture. She was still building things in Microsoft Access and Excel spreadsheets that had grown out of control. And that was a great space to be in that time frame. But then it was like, well, hold on. There's now these web servers that are doing stuff. And then this concept of a website showed up. When I came here, she barely had a logo. She didn't have a website. It wasn't important because she was right here in Columbia, Missouri, and everybody knew Devin, and just called Delta was a thing. And so I was like, well, we got around this corner. This web thing ain't going away. So starting to build those websites and just, again, back at chamber events, talking to people, social events, people who know people. It's, you do great work and they tell their friends. I'll say it forever. It's the best lead generator is good work. And so the ability to go out and say, oh, well, yeah, I've got this and this. You alluded to several e-commerce businesses. We built a system for a company called Glowforge back in 2017 or so and helped them with the largest 30-day fundraising campaign, Kickstarter. They couldn't use Kickstarter, right? Because Kickstarter doesn't have a referral code. And so they were going to go to Kickstarter. Kickstarter was going to make 5%, right? They take 5% for the credit card. They take 5% for Kickstarter. Well, Kickstarter lost out on that because they couldn't do a referral code. And somebody from a startup weekend had won startup weekend and went to Y Combinator, and he got into their Slack at Y Combinator. It's the Y Combinator alumni Slack. And the guy who started Glowforge was in there, and it was, I think he said it was like midnight, 2 a.m. or something. And he just pounded out, my God, my kingdom for somebody who knows how to build a WordPress website. And our guy who had left us to join that startup weekend team that won, he said, just call Delta. That guy called me up, and within 20 minutes, he goes, that's it. You're our guys. And we started working and figuring out how to build that system. So we built a Kickstarter plugin for WordPress that allowed for referral codes for a discount.
Well, and a custom way for the referral codes to work too. It wasn't just like a straight up, here's a friend, give them a code.
That's right. You needed to get credit for you. And this isn't like $50, right? This was a $6,000 machine. This laser cutter, $6,000 machine, was getting ready to explode, right? And this guy's like, no, we're giving you as the referrer $500. And we're giving you as the customer also $500. So that ain't nothing to sneeze at. And you're right, it was tied to me. So of course, any this is early days of influencer, right? This is 8-9 years ago now. And the idea that you could make $500 just by saying, hey, check out this awesome thing, pretty new. And very quickly, CNET and all these review websites would put out their referral codes. And boy, howdy, they were, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it wasn't a mature ecosystem yet.
Not a mature ecosystem at all. Now it's like, oh, you could find a Facebook clone and have it spinning up in an hour. And great. This is super. Just find a fun name and go nuts. But back then it was, no, we need this and we need kind of like this. And boy, we did some pretty crafty stuff very simply to solve the customer's problem. And at the end of that, what was it? $29 million worth of laser cutters?
Over 30 by the last day. They were selling like one a second or something. I mean, it was just an insane amount.
One every 6 seconds.
Yeah.
That's right, at the peak.
Yeah, this is kind of up with other guests too, but it's just another way of basically saying we arrive at these solutions because people are asking us for stuff repeatedly. It's like, this seems to be a problem for you, or this seems to be a headache for you. You're having to do this every day, every hour, every week. Is this something that's going to continue? And then you can just kind of ferret out what it is that they're actually trying to do. And there's the problem to be solved.
Yeah. I think then the next step beyond that, I mean, you're solving these problems and you're doing pretty obvious things to us because we're like, well, that's crazy. Why would you do it that way? This is, why don't we just solve your problem? Oh, well, that's great. And so we don't just take orders from people, right? People come to us with an idea and we build it out. But at the same time, they don't know what they don't know, right? And then somebody comes to us like, oh, I need this to work for 1 million simultaneous users. Really? Do you know? So do you even understand the concept of 1 million users hitting a server? No. How about we build it for 1,000? And when you get 10 customers and then we're only hitting 0.1% of the server utilization, we can right size things. We could save you costs. We could save you money. And so, your Rob Walling guy, what did he say? Something about your first 10 customers tell you more than your first 10,000 customers or something. And we live that all the time. It's like, you just got to go get 10 customers, buddy. Let's not build something for 1 million. Unless you're flush with so much cash and free resources, let's go nuts. If you're that unicorn, yeah, you have my undivided attention, but that's not how the world works. And so we've kind of been acting CTO for several companies. And, that comes with the tech roadmap. And they won't know what that even means. They come to us and they have an idea for a SaaS. We had a gentleman come to us and he's like, hey, I want to do lawn mowing. I want to help lawn mowing companies with a SaaS that brings them customers. And that was a great idea. We're like, that's kind of cool. And we're like, what's the need? And he's like, oh, I need this to be nationwide and I need every house in this system. And this was before Google Maps API had every residential address in the United States. And so he bought that data and that was a large financial investment and we had to make that work. But we had to instantly make that system work for 95 million single-family households. So our database had 95 million records in it. And you're like, well, that's not really a lot. It is if you're having to do full searches. And so indexing and speed become a thing. And so all this extra work that he didn't think we'd have to do, we're like, well, he's like, why is the system so slow? I'm like, well, you told us we need 95 million records in here. You didn't tell us that in the beginning. You just said we were going to do a few counties. And so now we have to go back and we have to add and expand because we didn't know your full vision, your full roadmap. And so we've learned to ask those questions ahead of time. And what's your end goal, right? Most of the time with these SaaSes, it's one of two goals. One, I want to get bought. I want Google to buy me. I want Microsoft to buy me. Okay, it's great. Apple, those guys are buying 2 companies a day or something right now? That's an awesome goal to have. I wish you luck. I hope I can help. But the other side of that is lifestyle businesses, right? It's nope, I want to be comfortable. I want to make X number of dollars of myself personally. I want to support a staff of 10, 20, 30, whatever, and pay them well. And that's success for them. That's wonderful. That's great. There's a lot of them out there like that. But with that, naturally building something that is providing a solution just grows legs, have a life of its own. And so, you don't have to worry about scaling that because you're organically growing at the beginning and you're solving individual customers' needs. But once you go from 10 to 10,000, it's a whole different animal. So seeing what you can do in that growth path and just determining the pain points and solving them is one way to go.
Yeah. So I already know the answer to this question, and you've also kind of made it very apparent in the interview, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Obviously, we're getting into the realm of startups and helping businesses and things like that. And you are obviously very passionate about it and always have been. But what got you interested in investing and mentoring startups instead of just going in and solving the problem and being a software developer?
The negative answer is, well, I'm sick of making millionaires. That's it. I love a challenge and I love a technical challenge. And I seem to have an ability to put on a customer's hat, even in an experience of something I've never had to do. But then the intuitive nature of frustration or, I'm not a graphic designer, but I can tell you when graphic design sucks. And then getting excited about like a startup weekend, frankly, for us, that was a way to recruit people. And it was people that were passionate about solving problems, being able to go in and hear a problem or somebody pitches an idea. But we used it as a recruiting tool. And so we're like, hey, you want to help us with this thing? And so we've hired a few people that were like, hey, this is cool. And then you're kind of vetting them through the whole weekend, right? Somebody pitches something on Friday, and by Sunday, again, if you like hanging out with them for 3 days with very little sleep and you're not at each other's throats, then this is probably somebody you can continue to work with.
Well, as part of that, I know you've also been a coach, you've been a judge at Startup Weekend, but just in a general sense, dealing with startups through, centennial investors and things like that. So I'm curious whether it's a developer or it's an investor or it's the idea person, or if that is all the same person, what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes like these early stage ideas or founders make when they're trying to build these products?
Yeah. Half the challenge is they can't get the idea out of their head. And so they're like, well, I got a vision for this. Let me just think. And I'm like, well, you have to talk. You're not going to do it in a vacuum. And then they can't communicate it fast enough, or they think, oh, this is too expensive to build, or they've done absolutely no due diligence. And it's like, really? You didn't Google this? I mean, I had a friend of mine send me a text the other day. He goes, dude, I got the way. We're going to make $1 million. You know how you have your golf bag thing that follows you along while you golf? I want to do that for luggage. This was like a year ago. Like, bro. Now, don't get me wrong. That's a great idea. There's several companies that do that.
They also thought it was a good idea.
Exactly, but you thought it was a good idea. Now, you could certainly be the 22nd company that is doing that. The first 21 companies seem to be doing it all right, which is totally fine. We've come into late stage capitalism, and everything has been figured out, and there's very few spaces that are new and unique. I make the analogy all the time of cable companies. There's like 9,000 cable companies. All they're doing is delivering data and their internet providers, but what's wrong with being 9,001st? Okay, just you don't have to be a unique idea, and that's kind of one of the challenges at some of these mistakes that they make. Oh, it's never been done before. Really? Because that's a big red flag for me. That means you haven't found the people that have already done it, A. And then B, if you think nobody else has done it, there may be a reason why. Maybe that's not a customer. Maybe that's not a market. How do you expect to make $10 million a year off of blah, blah, blah when there's nobody doing that? It's crazy.
So thinking is the problem.
Thinking is the problem. No research is the problem. That greed is a problem. I have to control this whole thing. You need to understand that it's a team effort. Most people do not understand that this is a team effort. They think I can do all of this, and they try to do that. I was the sole owner of Delta Systems for 18 years. And let me tell you, that was a stressful existence, and it was a limiting factor of our company because I brought in 90% of the business. I was, that hub and spoke thing I talked about earlier. That same concept is like, oh, this company will only grow as far as my reach is, and I can only reach so far, right? And as soon as I said, I need partners, I need somebody who's better at sales, I need somebody who's better at the legal stuff, I need a mergers and acquisition guy, because I was doing all that, managing people. We did a SWOT analysis one year, and which we could do an entire podcast on as well. But one of our people said that one of our weaknesses was that I was our best programmer. And they thought I was going to get mad at them, but that's ringing in my head all day long, right? What do you mean that's a threat? That's a weakness, whatever. And they're like, well, you should be outgrowing the company. You shouldn't be working on this client that's driving us crazy with this WordPress site for a local pizza place. You should be out getting the next pizza company, or maybe we make a SaaS for pizza companies, or working on the business and not in the business makes all the difference as well. So that's another challenge that these guys, when they come in, it's my idea. I'm going to be protective about this at Startup Weekend. Boy, Saturday afternoon in a Startup Weekend is very telling. You get to the point where everybody's exhausted, nobody's really eaten very well, and then everybody gets hangry, right? And then somebody gets this crazy idea. Then all of a sudden it's like they start talking about ownership. And so another mistake they make is talking about ownership percentages before the product exists. And so now you're out here saying, well, I have to own 51% of this company because that's how I need to control the company. Well, that tells me you don't understand how a company works and you don't understand how ownership works, is that you think 51% ownership is a controlling interest and that also controls all the votes. And so you're controlling the whole company. Well, that's not how the large companies work. Elon doesn't own 51% of the company, but he has the voting rights on the other side. So there's a lot of things, a lot of nuanced things in there that, you just pitched an idea a day and a half ago and all of a sudden you think you're worth $10 million a year on recurring revenue. And that's absolutely not the case. You got to actually build something before you're actually doing it.
Yeah. Proof of concept.
Proof of concept.
Well, keeping an eye on time, you've obviously been in tech a long time. You've seen languages and frameworks and ideas and paradigms come and go. So 2 questions. 1, what of the past do you secretly miss? And 2, what are you glad is actually gone and buried?
Wow. What do you secretly miss and what are you glad is gone and buried? That's a great question. Some of them, they just don't go away. I mean, they kind of drift around, and I'm glad I'm not involved in some of them anymore because they drive you a little crazy, but I wish some of them were back. C+ Builder was pretty cool way back in the day. That was a fantastic, very powerful tool. And then Borland, the company, got acquired by somebody else, and they strangled them and stole the customers and moved everybody over to something else. So that's kind of frustrating when you do that. But everything's kind of based off of C+ these days, which is great. JavaScript is great. All these little flavors of JavaScript that come out are a little annoying to me. I could probably name 20, 30 JavaScript libraries that came across and were like, oh, here's the solution. It's blah, blah, blah.js. And then you start digging through it and you're starting to use it and you realize, oh yeah, somebody's built this to do one thing. And you're like, ugh. So this is an entire platform. So we actually found Zen Framework very early. I switched early on. I was in .NET and I found it frustrating in several ways, but I think that was more the IDE. I was compiling DLLs. That was weird to me that you had to still compile code and then put it on a server. So we would, we called it DLL hell, right? And so compiling code and putting it up on a server, so not my bag, not my thing. And so I picked up a book on PHP and learned that. And that was more of a language that just made sense to me. And then I found other people that liked PHP and were better at it than me. And then Zen Framework popped up and we're like, oh, this is awesome. And then we started extending Zen Framework. And then we tied Zen Framework to WordPress. And very intelligent, much smarter than me, guys that worked for me, who liked working with me, tied those two things together. And we called it Dewdrop. And we open sourced it. So you could put a WordPress website on the front and had the power of Zen Framework on the back. I thought that was awesome. It worked extremely well. We were building, it's like you have a Ferrari, but you're going around a test track constantly, or you're just, going to the grocery store. It's like, I felt like we could build anything with that.
Well, I kind of predated those headless systems, which are still very popular right now.
Exactly. And at the same time, once that person moved on and got acquired, that person now works at WordPress and Automatic and back in the mothership. Absolutely. That's where that person should be. But that caused us to look around and we poked our head out of the sand. And sure enough, here's this thing called Laravel. And we realize, did we just spend the past few years building Laravel and not knowing that Laravel exists? The answer was absolutely yes. So had we had the foresight and the vision or the, keep looking instead of putting our head in the sand, we would have probably stopped building on our own thing early and went, no. Just like how we adopted WordPress very early, we were paying attention, right? We went through all of the different competitors to WordPress at the time. And that's another thing that people say, oh, WordPress sucks. That's a great interview question. And I could talk about that in a minute. But you would say, Sugar CRM sucks. Okay, why? Well, there's 35 security holes that I just found in it. See, that's a great reason to say why something sucks. If you say, this system sucks because you don't understand it, that's a whole different discussion. And so I think looping back on your original question of what do I think goes away, I don't know if I want to beat up anyone in particular, but it's systems that just don't keep growing, keep adapting to what they're doing is annoying and just don't make things easier for programmers, right? And so PHP is a good base for things, but Laravel certainly empowers everybody. NPM is, the entire internet is built on these package libraries of just, I used to make a joke about Java, right? When Java first came out, you're given the Legos. You weren't told how to build the Lego. And you're like, oh, this is kind of cool, but you don't know how any of the Lego work. And so you've got this problem that you're building programmers that only know how to snap things together and they have no idea what's in each one of those. That's frustrating to me. The tech itself, I don't care. Again, semicolon, no semicolon. It's just something that comes with the territory. If you're good at this, every chef needs a sharp knife. Great. You hate a knife, you love a knife for a certain reason, but either way, you're getting the work done in a way. And other people recognize that they also can use a knife. Great. Sounds like we should stick with knife for a while and not sharp spoon, right? But I'm not angry at sharp spoon. It gets the job done, but not as many people know sharp spoon. Most people know knife. So there's your pull quote.
All right. It's story time with Steve, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, don't get me started. Wait, you did get me started. This is the whole point.
This was the point. Yep.
That's right.
As I'm making notes on the next 14 podcasts that we could do together.
Yay! Let's do 5 more.
Okay, so last question then. So what is next for you? What's the next hill to climb? What do you want to do when you grow up?
That's a great question. I've been doing a lot of that searching lately. We're in some transition phases with some clients. I've been kind of doing the same thing for 20 years, but it's been different. But the nature of being everything to everybody was just exhausting and I couldn't do it. And so I've already turned the corner on that. That was, but that was 2018, right? So it's been 7 years of me shifting gears and kind of working in the business for several years. This sounds stupid, but we want to go build a SaaS. We've been building everybody else's SaaSes so much that we know what to do. And I found these other podcasts inspirational at a time when my tank has been empty because it's just been a slug for the past 7 years of working for a specific client and taking off all the hats. That's freed me up and allowed me to finally go, well, what am I passionate about? What do I want to do? And I'm pretty good at solving problems, but what problem do I want to solve? And so that's kind of what we're currently doing. The royal we. What am I looking for? It's we have all the tools. We're looking for the idea. But again, I don't need a new idea. I need to go be the 15th version of something. Great. 16th one is going to come along and wipe everybody off the planet, right? So there's several dozen verticals that we could pick that need help, or they've matured and they have an 800-pound gorilla, and that 800-pound gorilla isn't paying attention anymore. That's kind of where we started, right? When we were doing the story I told earlier about the email monitoring for Microsoft Exchange, when Microsoft Exchange was in its infancy, and this NetIQ company, this billion-dollar company, we were building a better solution for 1/10 the price. And we didn't have an overhead of thousands of employees and a board of directors to answer to. And we made a better solution. And had we not been bought out, we definitely would have been a competitor there. So we probably would have got bought to go away or to acquire our business. But again, that was the, get acquired or be a lifestyle business. I don't know if we've decided that yet, but we have several things that we want to do. And we have several startups that we built in-house that I think I'm just going to get my feet wet again and kind of improve those. And we need to advance the tech stack on several of those. And we know how to do that easily. And then something's going to pop up and we're going to say, let's run with this one. But I think the analogy and the advice that I always tell everybody is don't expect your ship to come in if you're never sending any ships out. And so I'm just keep sending ships. Most of them are going to sink. That's the world of startups. That's the world of startup weekends. That's the world of entrepreneurship. It's a 95% failure rate, if not 98% failure rate. And that's depressing at times, but you don't know what you don't know when you get started. You don't know that research, that due diligence, that's huge. But at the same time, if you're sending out 100 ships, you only need 1 or 2 to come back. Okay, it sucks when the first 98 fail, but you're never going to find that success or never find that niche and if you don't keep sending those ships out.
For sure. Steve, it is always a super happy fun time. Thanks for sharing your time and your insights. And the fun.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be on. It's been great. And like I said, I don't even listen to podcasts, and this is the one I listen to.
Well, good. We must be doing something right.
I think I told you guys to go make a podcast that only I would listen to. So thanks. So that's my personal podcast station. Is pretty sweet.
You're welcome. We've picked up a couple of more, so that's good.
No, it's been inspirational. Like I said, sometimes you need to go to a conference just to hear the same things, right? You need to whip out one of those books. You need to go to a conference just to hear it again, just to re-energize, to recharge, and to do that. We're in that phase right now. And again, I'm ready to start sending ships back out.
Awesome. Well, to help with that, we've been talking with Steve Powell, owner of Delta Systems, among other things. So, Steve, where and how can people reach you?
Find me. If you can't find me, I'm doing something wrong. But I'm on the LinkedIn and I'm on the deltasystems.com. And that's usually where most people get a hold of me. And happy to talk through startups anytime, at any phase of early stage, mid stage, late stage, all good. I've helped wind ventures down. It's almost as interesting as winding them up. But at the same time, yeah, if you can hit me up an email via the website, deltasystems.com, and we can go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
And a special thanks, as always, to our listeners. If you like what you're hearing, if you have any ideas for the show, just want to tell us what's on your mind, throw a review our way. Hit subscribe if you're so inclined, and we will see you all next time on SaaS That App. Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.